Have you ever wondered why some people just keep going, even when pretty much everyone else has given up and walked away?
We tend to chalk it up to something like willpower, right? But it turns out psychology tells us something different. It's not some magical force, it's actually a specific set of behaviors.
And what's fascinating is that people who never quit, they often share 7 pretty rare traits.
So let's dive in and really explore what sets these individuals apart. All right, first up, and you could argue this is the foundation for everything else, is that they have a crystal clear vision.
I mean, highly persistent people know exactly what they want. They have this unwavering picture of their goals, and that's what keeps them on track and helps them just tune out all the noise and distractions. And look, this vision isn't just some passive thing, like a daydream. No, they use it to actively fuel their determination day in and day out. Okay, on to trait number 2. And this one is all about perspective. It turns out these folks see failure, well, completely differently than most of us.
You know how when most people hit a wall, it just feels defeating? Well, persistent people use this really powerful strategy called cognitive reappraisal. For them, a mistake is just not a stop sign at all. Instead, they see it as, well, as a neutral data point. Think about it like this. If a business launch fails, their first thought isn't, oh no, I'm a failure. It's more like, okay, the marketing message must have been off. Let's look at the data and figure out why. See, to them, failure isn't some personal indictment of their worth. It's just information.
Trait number 3. This one might sound a little less glamorous, but honestly, it's the absolute engine of persistence. And it's this. They rely on routines.
Real persistence, it turns out, usually isn't about these big, heroic bursts of energy or motivation. It's much simpler. It's about the quiet discipline of just showing up every single day. These people structure their lives pretty meticulously, and they follow their routines, whether they feel like it or not. And that consistency, it builds this incredible momentum. That momentum is what makes it so much easier to push through when things, inevitably get tough.
All right, this next one might actually surprise you because it totally pushes back on a common stereotype. Trait number 4 is that they're incredibly adaptable. Yeah, you heard that right. We often confuse persistence with just being stubborn, but the research, it shows that the most persistent people are actually the exact opposite. They're super flexible. So if a certain approach isn't working, they don't just dig their heels in and stubbornly stick with it. No way. They adjust their strategy while keeping their big long-term goal fixed. They know when it's time to throw out the old map and find a new one to get to the same destination. Okay, number 5. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside the brain when things get stressful. Persistent people are absolute masters of something psychologists call cognitive control. See, when a task gets really hard, most of our brains trigger this primal survival response, basically telling us to escape the stress. But these folks, they've trained a totally different habit. They pause, just for a second, before they react. And that tiny pause, it's almost unnoticeable. It gives the brain just enough time to shift gears. It moves from that raw emotional impulse, I hate this, I quit, into a calm reasoning mode. So instead of just giving up out of pure frustration, they can use logic to actually assess the path forward. All right, trait number 6. This one challenges a core belief that so many of us have about what it takes to succeed. And it's this. They value effort way more than they value innate talent. Think about it. How many people stop the second they realize they aren't a natural at something? Persistent people, they just don't buy into that idea. They rely on the simple, powerful perseverance of effort. And hey, the research totally backs this up. They get that consistent hard work over a long time is a much, much better predictor of success than raw talent or even IQ. There was this one study in Frontiers in Psychology that put it perfectly. It said that, quote, perseverance if effort is a stronger predictor of performance outcomes than pretty much anything else. Powerful stuff. And that brings us to our final trait, number 7. This is really the fuel that keeps their engine running, often with zero help from the outside world. They are fundamentally deeply self-motivated. These aren't people who are waiting around for someone to give them a gold star or some encouragement or even feedback. Nope, their drive comes entirely from the inside. They just have this incredibly deep understanding of what they want and why they want it. That lets them constantly renew their own sense of purpose. And because that motivation is internal, they can keep going even when the path gets lonely or when it feels like there are no rewards in sight.
So when you step back and look at all 7 of these traits together, everything from having that clear vision to being totally self-motivated, a really clear pattern starts to emerge. Being someone who doesn't quit, it's not really about how much pain you can endure. It's about how your brain is wired to process that urge to stop.
The key takeaway here is this: you aren't born with a quit button. You're built to recalibrate.
So, if you found this breakdown of the real psychology behind persistence useful, you should definitely subscribe for more explainers just like this one, where we dig into the actual science of human behavior. Because honestly, once you start to understand the why behind what people do, you really do start to see the world in a completely different way.